Hello, my friends, and welcome to live coverage of GP Birmingham. It's a great pleasure to have your company. My name's Riley Knight, and I'm joined by Dr. Professor Simon Goertzen, the Pro Tour champion. He's sitting next to me, my friends, big smile on his face. He's ready to get underway, and surprise, surprise, Guillaume Wafo-Tapa has a hallowed fountain in hand.
Yeah, he's not on the right of the screen. No, it looks like Esper Control, right?
Well, we're going to kick things off, of course, with a hallowed fountain, as we see Wafo-Tapa has brought his Think Twices ready to go. Martin Velikov, on the other hand, getting off on the front foot in a major way here with his burn deck. In comes the Grim Lava Mancer for one. Wafo-Tapa on the clock, but his hand looks reasonably well set up here.
Yeah, and not the most scary draw by the burn player. It's one of the weaker one drops you can have. I think the only weaker play is probably a turn one Rift Bolt, something like that.
Yep.
That doesn't develop the board. And Wafo-Tapa, I mean, he's on the draw this game, but he's playing a control deck. He should be able to delay the game. So
the Hall of Famer here, known for his affinity for long, slow, grindy control decks. And right now, as you see Cryptic Command come off the top, it looks like Wafo-Tapa is on Esper Control. And so this is a slightly different approach to the format. We were talking about the fact that red has really fallen off the charts in terms of control decks in Modern. But maybe black is where you want to be. There are cards like Fatal Push that can push you in there. Esper Charm, draw 2 cards, instant speed. Yes, please. Yes, please, and thank you. We'll see what Wafo-Tapa has to say about this. But now it's a Boros Charm going upstairs. And in response, it's going to be Path to Exile on the Grim Lava Mancerino there.
And you are unfortunately forced into these kind of lines because otherwise the Lava Mancer just gets to deal 2 damage for basically no card invested. And Wafo-Tapa is actually not looking at too many lands, so he needs to slow down the game a little bit.
With cards like Negate, that's going to be a one way for him to do it here. But I'm looking at other cards in his hand. I mean, you can see there Think Twice, Serum Visions, sort of air, really. But we do... I'm going to reveal that Serum Visions very quickly. And a Swamp in hand as well here, as we see Goblin Guide come across. Is this going to give him the land he needs? No, it's an Esper Charm. And Velikov is looking at that card and going, what is that? It's in Japanese here, or it might even be Chinese. I can't get a good look at it from where I'm sitting here.
What do you mean you don't know what my foiled Japanese Esper Charm
does? So for those at home playing along, of course, you may already be across Esper Charm, but it's a 3 mana instant. It costs black, white, blue, and it says draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, or destroy an enchantment.
Target player discards 2 cards.
Instant speed. So random upside against many decks here, as we see now a Polluted Delta enter Wafo-Tapa's hand. He's going to scry 2 as well. So his mana's coming along nicely, and this Negate is going to be one way for him to bridge the gap here. But Goblin Guide demands an answer, Simon.
Yeah, and Negate is not the answer you're looking for. It will prevent 3 or 4 damage, though. So that's nice. I think you have to fire it off as soon as you can, because waiting is not going to help you.
No, and you're always going to snag... I mean, you're going to snag between 2 and 4 points of damage. Generally, you're going to get 3. You can take the average there.
The problem is if you don't do it here, when are you going to do it? Your opponent is not going to just play something main phase to let you counter it.
No. So we see here the Negate take care of that Lightning Helix, and that's a fine hit for Wafo-Tapa, and that's just about as much as you can expect out of it. And we see Snapcaster Mage revealed to Goblin Guide, so the actual unluckiest here, Guillaume Wafo-Tapa not hitting his lands off of Goblin Guide.
Did he leave that on top, the Snapcaster?
I think both cards went underneath.
That's what I would expect. If there's a Goblin Guide, you want to maximize your chances of just getting that free land.
Free land skew, that's right. So Wafo-Tapa does have a Polluted Delta in hand, but after that, I mean, he's going to be relying on cards like Cryptic Command to bridge him further into the late game here. He needs to find a bit of a pressure release. Velikov seems to be a little bit flooded.
Yeah, he doesn't have that super scary burn draw. For example, didn't have a turn to Eidolon, which would have made it much more difficult for Wafo-Tapa to even get out of this game alive.
Yeah, Eidolon of the Great Revel is one of the tools in the burn deck's arsenal that really just punishes so many decks in Modern. You see another Lightning Helix come down for Martin Velikov. And a follow-up play now of a Skullcrack as well. So Wafo-Tapa well and truly on the clock, but on 8 life, he's not out of it. Down to 5 is another matter, however.
But I mean, you are on 5. You are alive and kicking. You have that Cryptic Command. Maybe your opponent draws a sorcery speed burn spell. No, no,
it's
Boros Charm.
Boros Charm. So exactly enough after this polluted delta gets cracked. So Waffo Tapper cannot crack this this delta. He dies if he does.
No, but what he could do would be to maybe target negate. That seems ambitious. You can target negate with the Snapcaster Mage, or you can target Path to Exile. Path to Exile, then you're sure that the Goblin Guide
is dead.
Is dead. There's another problem, I wouldn't even call it problem. There's this little cat and mouse game of not wanting to enable Searing Blaze.
Yeah.
So if you're a control deck, you kind of have to hope that your opponent is drawing lands or dead cards, and there are not many dead cards in the burn deck in game 1. But Searing Blaze could be one of them.
Snapcaster Mage comes down, just as you said. Because Searing Blaze, as you mentioned, just a completely dead card. Otherwise,
if you don't
present with a target.
Okay, I don't know what Guillaume targeted here.
It looked like it was negate. No, it must have been the path. Okay, it was the path. All right. So Velikov now gets the opportunity to go and snag himself a land, but declines. Obviously, only 2 mountains in his deck.
That's not a lot.
So Waffo Tapper, as we said, cannot crack that polluted delta without dying to the Boros Charm that is in Velikov's hand. And an attack. Here we go. Tiago Chan getting on the front foot. And giving Martin Velikov a clip over the ear holes. Waffo Tapper still hasn't found the land he needs. And Velikov seems to be ready to play the waiting game here. Oh, no. So Esper Charm targeting Guillaume Waffo Tapper. Draw 2.
You need to draw into those lands.
Okay, and he has managed to get through this, but it's a Celestial Colonnade.
And he's still alive. I don't think he can believe it himself.
No, I think this is quite an astonishing set of circumstances. Think twice. Think twice. Number 3 here for Waffo Tapper.
This is, I mean, let's face it. This guy just builds decks differently than anybody else. Plays them differently than anybody else. It's just
genius.
To me, this seems suicidal. What are you doing? Bringing, I'm guessing it's 4 Think Twices, right? We have to be honest here.
Probably.
It's probably 4 Think Twice, 4 Esper Charm. Maybe he still had this deck lying around from.
So Esper Charm gets met in response with a Boros Charm, and does Martin Velikov have the final point that he needs? He does not. Bloodstained Mire and 2 other lands holding out in the hand of Velikov as Waffo Tapper on 1 life draws a card. And then another one, and a Sphinx's Revelation off the top. Is he seriously not holding a land? Getting in for another 2 here. So with half his deck in hand, he still does not have that 6th land. Serum Visions may have something to say about that, however. Nope, thinks better of it. With 8 cards, is he going to go to discard? Guillaume Waffo Tapper moving to discard here with 8 cards in hand, one of which is Serum Vision. He has not hit his land drop. He has 2 copies of Think Twice, and he is going to discard. Simon Gertzen?
Yes.
Genius or Maniac?
I think it's the right play, because he wants to pass with as much mana as possible.
A Boros Charm sitting in the hand of Martin Velikov.
Yeah, this was a huge draw, of course. Velikov is also not deploying his lands. I don't quite understand why.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Sphinx's Revelation for 1 here for Waffo Tapper, and a Boros Charm in response should seal the deal. Yes, indeed it does. Waffo Tapper cycling his Sphinx's Revelation there, and unfortunately going down. Interesting to see that he chose to play that instead of the Think Twice.
He wanted that 1 life because it would have enabled his polluted delta
to go and fetch. Well, a great point there, Simon. But unfortunately for Waffo Tapper, he's gone down in the first game. Martin Velikov will be very, very happy to have gotten up and about in game number 1 here. As Waffo Tapper consults his sideboard, I could see Timely Reinforcements. That's a Stone Cold Powerhouse. Negate, also going to be very useful. Looks like some cryptic commands may be coming out. Yep, yes indeed. Get them out of here, he says. 2 copies of Logic Knot amongst the list that Waffo Tapper's playing.
Also a card he really likes.
I'm going to be trawling through the deck list to find what this bloke is playing. I think the Black Splash may just be for the Esper Charms and perhaps some removal.
Just the key cards.
Yeah. A Go for the Throat I saw in the board, a couple of them in fact. Thought Seizers as well. Okay. Do you leave Thought Seize in against Burn?
Depending on my deck, yes. I like it a lot. For example, when I played, what was it? I think it was Jund Death Shadow.
Right.
Just being able to snatch Eidolons. maybe Path to Exile, depending on your draw.
I mean, the worst case scenario, you play a Thoughtseize against a burn deck, and they have a Lightning Bolt or a Lava Spike, which you take, saving yourself life.
That's the turn one Thoughtseize, right? Yeah. The worst case scenario is actually casting it, and then they empty their hand, burning you.
In response, yeah, sure.
And that's definitely a liability. The thing is, sometimes it's still a net positive.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, Inquisition is better, but if you're really scared of the Eidolon in particular, don't think it's a mistake to just try to Thoughtseize it.
Well, I think Wafo Tapper may have kept them in, or at least one. I'm not exactly sure how he's positioned his board here, but Velikov will have also been able to augment his deck here against the blue-white base menace here. I mean, looking at cards like Skullcrack, obviously very important. Taking out the Searing Blazes in exchange.
Skullcrack is I'm sure is already in the main deck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So if he's straight red-white, at least there's no Atarka's Command for Guillaume to worry about. The burn decks are almost exclusively red-white now. Boros.
We don't see the red has sort of the green has sort of fallen out of favor. Although every now and again we still see things like. Atarka's Command is one of the cards, obviously, that the green decks are looking to play, but of course the Disenchant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
the Revelry.
Destructive Revelry, because it's a naturalized effect that also deals damage, which you don't get otherwise. Yeah.
Yep. So we see this sometimes, but no, I remember the time when burn decks were playing Wild and Cattle.
Yeah, this was a different time. Then you had more than the 12 creatures that you're playing now.
Yeah.
Which also means that the Atarka's Command mode of giving your creatures +1/+1 was more impressive.
Yeah, for sure. But nowadays, it pumps the Swift Spear nicely. It can get your Goblin Guide through a tricky combat. But
Guillaume's deck actually reminds me of the tweet by BBD.
Go on.
Where he showed Cloud Chaser in Shaheen Sarani's deck. Cloud Chaser, perfect fit for...
Cloud Blazer.
Cloud Blazer,
yeah, sure.
Perfect fit for Esper Control, right?
Draw 2, gain 2. Yeah.
That's like Think Twice on steroids.
Yeah, it is. It even attacks and blocks. Maybe that's the problem with it. Okay, Wafo Tapper, you can see he's drawn some of his sideboard cards, but not enough. Not good enough here for the Frenchman, the Hall of Famer, going down to 6. Velikov, on the other hand, seems to be happy with his hand there. Wafo Tapper, rather interestingly, choosing to shuffle 2 decks at the same time, or 2 halves of his deck at different times. Maybe he's got them all triple sleeved.
I think the new standard is
quadruple. Quadruple sleeving is the new
not standard. The new.
Well, I know what you mean. The bar has been set. Yeah, okay. Quadruple sleeving. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
The standard is still, I think. Where's the standard? It's like 1.5, I would say.
1.5.
Yeah, some people single sleeve, some people double sleeve.
What is the average number of sleeves placed on a Magic card
exactly.
in a competitive tournament?
Depending on the format, right?
Yes, definitely, absolutely. It's going to change depending. The older the format, the greater the number of sleeves. I think it'd be at a standard tournament. I think it'd be like 1.1, 1.2.
And in modern, I think it's more 1.7, 1.8.
Yeah. Okay.
Double sleeving is very, very common.
I would put it closer at 1.5.
Yeah,
I think by the time we're getting to Legacy and Vintage, we're getting much closer to 2.
I was counting the people picking up the quadruple sleeve tech.
Okay.
And that
right. And they really shifts a long way once you've got those 4 sleevers getting out there. Wafo Tapper seems to be in the middle of a scrying decision after having picked up a 6 he's happy enough with. Path to Exile, Esper Charm, some lands in there as well.
So, for those that don't know, whenever Wafo Tapper is playing, he's playing control decks that want to reach 6, 7, 8 mana and that don't mind having a land drop every single turn.
Yes.
But because you only have a single draw step every turn, you need cards that just draw you 2 cards. Which means that even though cards like Divination, Esper Charm, or Think Twice might not be great in the format, the way he builds his decks just means they are a necessity.
Yeah, it means that he wants to be able to play a land and a spell every turn.
Exactly. And then once he reaches 9 mana, he will play an Esper Charm and a 6-drop.
Yeah.
Or he will have 7 mana, he will play an Esper Charm and have Cryptic Command up. And it just doesn't work out that you build these decks without the card advantage.
Goblin Guide?
engine.
And it's Think Twice off the top. Never going to take those out.
Which is actually why if this Goblin Guide ever reveals lands, it's really playing into Guillaume's hands.
So Wefo Tapper now. Polluted Delta, and it's back to Velikov. Velikov's off to the ideal start, of course, with his Goblin Guide. It looks like he may indeed have some red cards to bring, or some green cards to bring to bear here.
Sometimes we see the Stomping Ground in the main deck, but the green card's only in the sideboard.
Yeah, Destructive Revelry would be definitely the advantage the example I'd use in these red decks, attempting to get an advantage out of their sideboards. And Destructive Revelry is certainly a card that you would think about perhaps against blue-white. I mean, Detention Sphere is a bit of a beating sometimes. But I don't know how heavily you'd be leaning on it,
I think the only real reason would be Ley Line.
Okay.
But this Esper Control deck, I don't think Guillaume is such a Ley Line player. You know what I mean?
No. Doesn't need him. Doesn't need him. As we see now, Velikov going to get in for 4 here, thanks to these hasty creatures. And Wefo Tapper, without too much of an answer against this onslaught here, negate on the top, he'll have the option to draw that if he so chooses.
No, I don't think he wants that. He needs now explosives. Supreme Verdict could already be too slow. I think so. I think he took out some of them.
I think he took out all of them.
What I do like about Supreme Verdict is that it costs 4, which can be a really nice, clean answer to Eidolon.
Yep.
So, just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and against black aggro decks, it doesn't get hit by Inquisition, which is just very, very important indeed. Especially as they tend to be a touch slower, the black decks here. But Wefo Tapper, he's got a difficult decision to make here because, of course, he has Path to Exile in hand, unless I'm mistaken, which means that he can sort of save himself a bit of life by going after one of these homeboys that's running across the battlefield at him.
Giving your burn opponent more mana in this on turn 2 with 2 prowess creatures on the board is also not an easy decision.
He's going to take it down to 14 here. Oh no, Path to Exile on a Monastery Swiftspear. Guess he wants that Goblin Guide to start hitting him lands. He hasn't hit a single land off of the Goblin Guide trigger so far.
He also decided not to fetch before the Goblin Guide trigger, which is, I would say, closer to the default, because that way you don't shuffle away a spell. But in this case, Guillaume really wanted to hit lands, I think. Oh, well, that's not really true, right? He wants to hit answers.
So we are going to see the Polluted Delta cracked, and inside it is this Watery Grave.
Beautiful Watery Grave with the Demir, what is this called? Hologram?
Yeah, Watermark. And you can see Wefo Tapper takes a good deal of pride in the presentation of his deck. Mostly foils, I think, and a lot of them foreign language, almost all of them coming from, I think Japan is his favoured flavour there. So Serum Vision's off the top. Perhaps it's not exactly the interaction he's looking for. What does he need, Simon? Just removal? Counterspells? Obviously not counterspells. He would have kept negate on top.
No, because you're taking 3-4 damage for sure, and negating is also a matter of not having the right mana available at the right time.
Polluted Delta has been drawn, and Hallowed Fountain and negate on top of Wefo Tapper's library here. So he decides what he's going to do with this little Skryski.
Hallowed Fountain not even really all that helpful if you think about it.
Both going below decks as well here.
And I was of course referring to the fact that Goblin Guide could give it to him for free.
Yeah. But at this stage, doing anything other than bringing it into play tapped is a bit of a liability.
What is his game plan in this matchup? It seems like the cards he's drawn so far are all like pretty terrible.
Yeah, I mean, Think Twice and Esper Charm are not where you want to be.
So if you don't find timely reinforcements here, I don't really see how you stem the bleeding, and this runs into Skullcrook.
Velikov with a Lightning Helix going upstairs. And Wefo Tapper, nothing else doing really apart from just taking the damage. Another 4 presenting itself on the battlefield here. Interesting not to leave the Hallowed Fountain on top, however. He's chosen instead a Doomblade is going to be the draw for him next turn.
Because the Hallowed Fountain is not what he's looking for. He doesn't want to take damage from his lands.
So instead he would rather, what, island or something?
Yeah, it could be an untapped land.
Okay.
Or it could be a spell that's actually helpful. So in both cases, he's more happy about this kind of interaction.
Think Twice draws the Doomblade. And another draw here is Sphinx's Revelation. Not in a great position to leverage that just yet. His life total at a precarious 7.
And Martin played this really well. He's holding the Destructive Revelry.
He is indeed.
And the Lightning Helix was kind of the bait. He said, I want to deal that extra damage with my Swift Spear, but I'm holding back my most efficient burn spells because you are under pressure, you will have to use your mana, and if you do, I'm just threatening to kill you on the spot.
So Lightning Bolt, in addition to Destructive Revelry, as a Sacred Foundry and another mystery card hanging out in the hand of Martin Velikov. Wifo Tapper, on the other hand, has Doomblade, Esper Charm, Sphinx's Revelation, and Glacial Fortress. Velikov down to 16 now, after having gained some life off of his Lightning Helixes. Helices, even. Excuse me.
Martin playing this Lightning Bolt before combat because it means that it's exactly 7 points of damage this turn. He's representing lethal.
Wifo Tapper, another Think Twice. He has not drawn a single land off the Goblin Guide, and he's revealed Think Twice more times than you can count here. Doomblade, targeting the Monastery Swift Spear, going to save him a point or two of life.
I mean, we have to be honest. There's also far too many Think Twices in his deck.
Well, let's not sort of
judge.
Let's not throw around too many words. We're all having a lot of fun here today, so we're all saying things we don't necessarily mean. As Wifo Tapper gets dropped down to 2. Velikov, again, gun-shy, just firing off the cards in his hand. I can see Destructive Revelry. Something else? Does he have the...
He has a Skullcrack. He's just sitting there.
Just waiting, ready to go.
He has a lethal Goblin Guide, and he's just waiting to Skullcrack Guillaume out of this game.
Basic Island comes down for Wifo Tapper now after the Polluted Delta gets cracked in half.
Very nice patient play by Velikov. He knows he doesn't have to rush it. He just needs to put the control player into a position where they lose if they don't do anything, and they lose if they do something. So I really like how the Burn Mage has handled this game.
Logic Knot off the top for Wifo Tapper. Bit of interaction here as we see Glacial Fortress. He is still trying to bridge his way towards the late game here, Wifo Tapper, but I tell you what, it's going to be a tricky one because Velikov has more than one ways to skin this particular cat, as Boros Charm comes off the top as well. So more or less every single card is going to do it for Velikov here.
But even without the...
and it's an Esper Charm.
Even without the Boros Charm, Wifo Tapper was basically dead on board, right? He can gain 2 with the Revelation, but that's just...
Yeah.
I mean, you're just asking.
Velikov's just standing over the surgery table, looking at hammers, chisels, saws, knives, chainsaws, and he gets to pick his poison here. He can end Wifo Tapper's life here in any way he chooses, and it's going to be Boros Charm, the weapon of choice. So Wifo Tapper going down in straight sets against Martin Velikov and his burn deck. So good stuff from him. He's really pulled that one together, and what a scalp to claim as well. The French Hall of Famer going down against Burn, unfortunately, for fans of the Frenchman. That is just about all she wrote. Although, of course, he's still sniffing at that day 2 appearance. Hopefully things turn out a little bit better for him in the future. Well done to Martin Velikov. Full credit to him. And it's now time to move on to one of our other tables. Ivan Flock, the Pro Tour champion. Eldrazi Tron at a 5-1 record, facing off against Ross Jackson. And Simon, you'll be pleased to see that he is playing the Grixis colours. Yeah,
Grixis Death Shadow, the tier 1 deck of the format. Eldrazi Tron not far behind.
No, Tron has really done a real number on Modern. I would say the 3 decks that have probably been on the top of people's radars this weekend, of course, Tron decks in their different formats, whether it's Eldrazi, whether it's just the traditional green-based Tron decks. Death Shadow, obviously, Grixis, Abzan, 4-color, whatever it is, with Grixis, of course, being at the top of that list. And I would say number 3, Scape Shift.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good summary. And I don't remember the last time I played Tron. It's not really my style of deck. But
you've got a level of taste. Not a high level.
If I were to play Tron, it would be Eldrazi Tron. Because if you're going to go for unfair interactions, then I think you should maximize on it.
Ross Jackson now. Down to 15 on his first turn. We saw, of course, in the Magic Trivia section just previously during a break that the lowest life total you can take yourself to on turn number 1 with a perfect Death Shadow draw is 6.
Perfect play as well.
Yep.
I still prefer to think it's 7. 7 life.
Because you're not going to lightning bolt yourself?
I'm not going to lightning bolt myself. I'm going to thought seize my opponent, just like Ross Jackson.
Just like Ross Jackson's doing. So he's doing an absolute number on his own life total here. And let's look at the grip of Ivan Flock. Couple of lands. Dismember. We've got Thought Not Seer. Urza's Tower. Reality Smasher. Eldrazi Temple joining the Seagate wreckage there as well. And that looks like a little Ghost Quarter hanging out as well.
So not the scariest lands.
No.
Overall.
Certainly not.
The first Eldrazi Temple could mean there is a second one looming on the top of Flock's deck. So you have to be somewhat concerned about much earlier Thought Not Seer than you would like to see.
Well, that's not going to happen here, says Ross Jackson. Get rid of that 4/4.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Pick.
Even Flock very much wanting to play it, but resigned himself, saying, "No, I thought not." Looks like a Tron piece coming off the top. There may have been a tower.
It looked like Library of Alexandria at first, but
there are so many different art. There's so many different art variations for the Tron pieces.
Also, Library of Alexandria not as good if you're getting Thought Seized on turn 1.
Also very true. An inherent weakness of the card. Unplayable.
In Modern, I think it's definitely unplayable.
Definitely unplayable in Modern, you agree?
Oh, spicy.
Interesting.
Did Ross draw a card from Thought Scour? I'm pretty sure he didn't.
There we go. He was so excited to get his Tasigur out that he forgot to draw off of his Thought Scour.
Yeah, and I think, as we both know, excitement is really a dangerous thing when you're playing competitive Magic.
Just in general. For you, Simon. Just in general. Ivan Flock now, we're going to see a Dismember on the Tasigur, not wanting to muck around with the Banana King whatsoever. He's dethroned.
But that's fair, right? You pay 1 mana for your 4/5.
Yep.
And you pay 1 mana to get rid of it.
Now, the Death Shadow deck, of course, in the Grixis colours with cards like Thought Scour is able to power out these huge delve threats very, very early ahead of schedule. So Ivan Flock will be thanking his lucky stars that he had the answer to it. But look at this. Another Eldrazi Temple means that it may be time for a hasty 5/5. Or is that just a Ghost Quarter hanging out in his hand?
I think it's just a Ghost Quarter.
Just the Ghost
The
Quarter.
Chalice is more interesting.
Okay.
That's something that's potentially hard to beat for Jackson.
That's a great point. I mean, what? A full 50% of the deck of Grixis Death Shadow it costs 1.
You lose so much of your potential plays.
Ceremonious Rejection, however, the absolute powerhouse. This is a card that people really, really should be aware of, really should be playing. 1 mana hard counter against so many of these big mana decks, and of course having upside against cards or decks like Affinity as well. It's doing good work for Jackson here, keeping Flock off of that Chalice.
Any card that costs 1 mana and has the potential to just hard counter a relevant portion of spells is just worth it.
Yeah, Stubborn Denial is an all-star in this Grixis Death Shadow list, as well as cards like Ceremonious Rejection. But obviously a card such as Stubborn Denial requires a lot of setup. You can't just whack that in any deck. Ceremonious Rejection, on the other hand, if you're playing Islands, you need to play Ceremonious Rejection. It is so good.
In this metagame, right?
Yes, for sure.
If we were looking at another format, it might be completely unplayable.
No, sorry, absolutely. I mean, that's what... that is certainly what I'm saying. In this current time, as we see Reality Smasher come down, when we've got Tron, when we've got Affinity, these big dogs of the format, Ceremonious Rejection is just in such a great place. There's no excuse not to play it.
Multiple different versions of Tron as well.
Yeah. Yep, and it hoses all of them. Reality Smasher, however, is going to get the job done. Jackson down to 6, down to 5 even after this fetch land. So he's unafraid.
Yeah, but this is where you actually need your Death Shadows to somehow make something positive out of the fact that you're so low on life.
Well, some 1 mana 8/8s would certainly be welcome for Ross Jackson at this stage, I would imagine. We'll see if he has any to deploy here. He hasn't been able to use his mana enormously efficiently. Dreadbore is an answer to the Reality Smasher, but of course it is going to cost Jackson an extra card should he choose to take that route. Yes, indeed. So discarding Thoughtseize.
But now somehow he has lost this fight and we didn't really notice much of the fighting going on, right?
No.
It's somehow Floch just playing some spells and Ross just falling over.
Well, Ross went Thoughtseize into Tasigur.
That got dealt with.
That got dealt with, and all of a sudden he's just ripping cards off the top of his library and not really having much of an effect on the game, as we see Matter Reshaper join the party for Ivan Floch. Ross Jackson going to have a quick read of the card. Let's just remind ourselves what it does. 3 mana, 3/2, of course, and when it dies, reveal the top card of your library. If it costs 3, put it on the battlefield. If it costs more, put it in your hand.
And I think one of the reasons why Ivan is playing this deck is because he really enjoys this matchup.
Okay.
You have the chalices, which are huge. Your creatures are monstrous and generate value, almost all of them. You have the unfair Tron Stars, you have the unfair Temple Stars. Now, I think the Griggs' Death Shadow draw is also particularly weak, but we saw two powerful stars matching off against each other.
Jackson down to 4 now. Bloodstain Mire hitting the bin. And we're going to see a Fatal Push. So that was obviously to enable Revolt here.
But that's, of course, not...
And
okay.
Floch gets an Expedition map.
That's beatable. It makes me wonder if Ross should have taken the Dismember to protect his Tasigur.
Chalice for 1 coming down again. And does Jackson have a response this time? No, he doesn't. So that's going to shut off a number of windows here for Jackson. And you make a good point, Simon, because, of course, with that turn 1 Thoughtseize, he could have taken out the answer to his threat.
This was the big decision. He was never going to take Reality Smash, I'm quite sure. But if you take Dismember, the game takes a completely different route.
All right, we have now a Masterpiece coming down for Ross Jackson. Fancy looking card, going to see if it can have some kind of impact on this game. It's an Engineered Explosives here.
Yeah,
for 0.
Because it's for 0, so it will deal with the Chalice on 1. Casting cost of Chalice on the battlefield is 0.
Even though 2 mana was spent on it.
Exactly, because the X's are just considered to be zeros.
So this means Jackson isn't going to labor under the oppression of the Chalice of the Void for 0.
Floch knows what he's doing. He wants to draw an extra card.
Okay, well, Seagate Wreckage is going to help him do that here. And so now Jackson has the ability to take care of both of these Chalices.
That's the downside of the play, of course.
So not holding on to the Chalice for an extra turn, waiting for the Engineered Explosives to go away?
I'm not sure if it was the right play. I'm just sure that Ivan made it intentionally.
Well, Death Shadow coming down.
This Death Shadow would have come down anyway.
That is very true. Because the Chalice wouldn't have been there.
And Floch still doesn't have Tron?
No, he does. He definitely does, because he tapped just one land to cast the Chalice for 2 before. Perhaps not?
No, I think he has 3 towers.
Okay, well, perhaps not. There we go. Expedition Map's going to have something to say about that, however.
If he reaches...
Power plant.
If he reaches 8 mana, which he should have, I think we will see a Walking Ballista.
So, plays the power plant here. And now with these 2 towers being tapped. And the mine. There's a lot of mana. And here is the Walking Ballista, the Sausage Merchant. And an extension of the hand because, of course, Walking Ballista functions as a colourless burn spell going straight at the dome for Ross Jackson. And that is enough. That's all she wrote for Ivan Floch and Ross Jackson. Floch taking it out in straight sets 2-0. An impressive performance for him. And as you mentioned, Simon Gertzen, Jackson never really seemed to be in that game.
No, and like I said, it would take more... I would need more time to think about the implications of taking another card with Thoughtseize. I think at the time that he made the decision, I agreed with it. Ultimately... I don't know how he sideboarded. He just had this one threat, and that's not going to be enough.
No, wasn't enough, and indeed Ross Jackson going down in straight sets, as I say, to Ivan Floch, the Pro Tour champion. Well done indeed to him. I'm sure we'll be seeing him in the top tables before very much longer. Stick around, my friends. We've got some... got to take a break here, but after that, on the other side of it, we will, of course, be back with more magic coming your way from GP Birmingham. We'll see you soon.